Hello, listeners, and welcome to another episode of Subscription Scaled. I'm your host, Nick Frederick. With me today is John Haji, who is one of the founders of the Subscription Trade Association, otherwise known as SUBTA. John, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Nick. It's a pleasure to be here and happy to talk subscriptions with you.
Yeah, always a fun topic. And thanks again for coming on today. Let's start at the beginning here. You guys have a show coming up in a couple months, which our team has attended a couple times. It's a pretty good event, but maybe let's start there. Tell us a little bit about SUBTA and, of course, the event you guys have coming up, SubSummit.
Yeah, so SUBTA is, like you said, stands for the Subscription Trade Association. It's an association that we formed to essentially bridge the gap between subscription box merchants, or subscription merchants, I should say, that fall into 6 different verticals of the subscription economy, being subscription box, subscribe and save, membership models, digital streaming, SaaS and membership. And then the association helps bridge the gap between those folks and then the suppliers and vendors in the space to help them grow and scale, right? We run the association all year round as a way to kind of allow these folks to network, learn from each other. And that powers the event, SubSummit, which is less than 60 days away, which is getting very, very exciting. And it feels like it's going to happen tomorrow. But SubSummit, this will be our 8th annual event happening in Dallas, Texas, May 31st through June 2nd. And on pace to be our largest event to date, which is really, really exciting. We have an amazing lineup of speakers, an amazing lineup of brands such as The Honest Company, the NBA, Porsche, Netflix, Mercedes-Benz, so many different players from startup to enterprise that will be attending, with amazing suppliers and vendors, even like yourself, that have come to this event to help these brands grow and scale and take it to the next level.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Yeah, like we've talked about, I've been there a couple of times. It's an awesome event, very well run. One of the things that I appreciate about it is the diversity of merchants all around subscription that you guys have there. So maybe go into that a little bit. You talked about the 6 different divisions or categories that you guys put subscription businesses into. How did you guys come up with those different groupings, right? And what can each one of them expect in terms of content focused on them during the event?
Yeah. So to take it back, right? Myself, my 2 partners, Chris and Paul, we were merchants one day. Back in 2014, we started our own subscription box company called the Gentleman's Box. And that was like our crack at the subscription world. Very early on into the subscription. Well, not early on, subscriptions have been around for decades, but in terms of like physical subscription boxes where the booms were happening around Dollar Shave Club and Birchbox, it's kind of like when we started Gentleman's Box. And for us early on, we were like, how can we connect with other subscription box owners like Birchbox and FabFitFun, Dollar Shave Club, and get to network with these folks to learn how to take our business to the next level, realize that there wasn't anything out there. And that's kind of like the birth of SubSummit. And so back in 2016, just 3 scrappy entrepreneurs from Detroit were like, let's just put on our own event, right? And so we put an event actually in Detroit, Michigan, in our backyard here. Was fortunate enough to bring the CEO of FabFitFun, the CEO of Birchbox, and a really tight community of subscription box owners to just come together, about 200 folks to come together and have a really intimate gathering to learn off each other. And then it expanded from there. Where its focus was primarily subscription box, we realized that the subscription industry is way beyond just subscription boxes, right? And that's when we realized that there are these different verticals. So you have your folks like Netflix and HBO Go that fall on the streaming side of things, and your membership models and your media subscriptions like Wall Street Journal and New York Times. So, we decided to do some digging to find out what different verticals are out there that are kind of the more popular verticals, if not like the real main verticals in the subscription industry. And these were the 6 different verticals: Subbox, e-commerce brands with a subscribe and save model, membership models, digital and streaming subscriptions, and then even the SaaS softwares like Microsoft and Adobe. And so, you have since 2019, we've been able to kind of really diversify that audience, where we started to really expand past subscription box and bring on the merchants within the other different verticals. And it's been continuously growing since then. And as a result, of course, content as a whole has to diversify. But in general, we're all dealing with the same thing, right? We're all thinking, how can we acquire more customers? How can we, and the most important thing, retain customers? Because the retention side of things, which is like the main topic at SubSummit this year, is the biggest aspect of like subscriptions, in my opinion, right? Like we're all driving amazing experiences. We're all trying to acquire new customers, but like keeping them on and building on that lifetime value is super, super important. And so, And the thing is, across these 6 different verticals, we're all talking about the same thing. We're all talking about acquisition. We're all talking about retention. We're all talking about how can we increase LTV and how can we build on experiences. So those are some general topics that we'll be speaking on at SubSummit, that multiple different vendors and merchants will be speaking on. And then more focused around the e-commerce side of things, because still at its core, about 90%, 85 to 90% of our merchant audience members are e-commerce brands that have like a subscription box business or like a subscribe and save model. So then we start talking about fulfillment, logistics, international shipping, right? The packaging experience, the unboxing experience, the experience as a whole when somebody lands on somebody's website to when the product is received at their door. So then you sprinkle in those type of topics, and that kind of rounds up like everything that we'll be speaking about at SubSummit.
Is that kind of some of the idea behind creating content for some of these guys? Because obviously a streaming service doesn't need to worry about international shipping, right? So
sure.
You've got some content that's going to be focused on each one of them individually.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think for one, outside of like the international shipping logistics that don't apply to some of these brands, it's important to talk about just the customer experience as a whole. And so that's a big topic for these folks, right? How to deliver great content to their consumers, how to build on a great customer experience, whether you're Netflix or HBO Go, or you're a Chewy.com or Harry's Razors, like the experience that a customer goes through, like, with in a day and age where everyone's fighting for a person's like pocket in terms of subscriptions, right? Right. You gotta differentiate yourself. You gotta separate yourself from the rest. And how do you do so? And it's like building on that customer experience. So we have topic discussions on that, how to deliver great content within your specific vertical, and that's gonna touch on those different verticals.
You mentioned retention being a major focus, or maybe the main focus of the conference this year. We've been talking about that on pretty much every episode that I've had of this podcast, at least this year and going into to last year, with acquisition costs just going through the roof, right, across so many channels. What do you think merchants can expect to learn or take away around retention when they come this year?
For one, different strategies that they can like own in on with their own customer base, right? Like their current customers are their current loyal subscribers, right? They understand the brand, they understand their messaging, and so it's important for them to learn how to double down on those customers, because those are the ones where they're going to be able to increase LTV on. It's going to be much harder, obviously, to do so on a cold customer, like somebody you're trying to acquire through paid media, right? Especially when costs are through the roof, right? So on the strategy side of things, on the retention side of things, it's okay, how can we, it's speaking on building an amazing experience post-purchase, right? Like that's going to be a big topic, right? Let's talk on the post-purchase experience and what can you do after you've kind of acquired that customer to retain them along the way. Is it on the subscription box side of things? Is there something you're doing differently within the different boxes that's engaging in certain content? Is it engaging with the unboxing experience? Is it the content that you're publishing on your website? Is it are you developing content on these social channels to engage with your customers? So what are you doing to engage with the consumer post-purchase to deliver such an amazing experience that somebody says, the products are secondary. I'm a subscriber for this brand because of the experience, right? And then the different strategies around email marketing, influencer and affiliate marketing, how to develop really strong strategies around developing strategic partnerships that will help kind of retain customers kind of like down the road.
I'm assuming a lot of this is going to come from case studies. Merchants are going to come up on stage and talk about what they're doing, what has worked for them and whatnot, right?
Yep.
What's your sense of, and this is a bit of a subjective question, how many subscription companies are doing this well? Like they've honed in on that experience. They're doing what they need to do in order to retain the valuable customers that they've already got, keep them engaged in the product and wanting to, stay around for as long as possible, versus those that are just letting a lot of fruit die on the vine because they're just not engaging with their subscriber base the way that they should.
Yeah, it feels like to me like those mid-level and enterprise level brands like have it down in that they have the strategies in place already, or they're already thinking about it. it's much tough. Just to speak transparently, it's probably much tougher for like the startup brands to really pour a lot of their energy, especially during this time, on like
Sure.
how do we build on those retention strategies when we're just trying to get the brand off the ground, when I'm stretched thin to do A, B, C, D, right? So I think that you see the kind of those mid-level brands and those enterprise level brands that have bigger teams, stronger teams, to be able to kind of divide and conquer and be able to think of those strategies and make sure that they're deploying on those strategies and executing on those strategies to retain customers and increasing LTV. So, I mean, a lot of the streaming subscriptions, right, I feel like are doing well, right? They're figuring out ways to drive value, whether they're bundling their packages or offering exclusive content, right? So they're doing it very well because exclusive content, right? That's a retention strategy. You won't get it anywhere else unless you're subscribed here, kind of thing, right? That's a retention strategy. So I think a lot of those streaming subscriptions, I've seen a lot of the media subscriptions lately really own in on the retention side of things with like their content, because content is king nowadays, whether that's through social media, whether that's through a newsletter, whether that's through an email, a platform like the Morning Brew, right?
For media, that is literally their product, right? Content is the product.
Right. Yeah. So they're doing a really fantastic job, I feel like, as well. As far as like a percentage, I'd hold back on just throwing out a number there, but like to speak on those verticals, like those are the ones that I think are doing a good job.
Yeah. Well, just if we can dig into that a little bit deeper, what have you seen other subscription brands not doing right specifically, or what are some strategies that you have seen, ones that are out in the front of retention doing really, really well? I talked to John Roman from BattleBox last week, and boy, have they got a strategy around retention down. Like, it's amazing, their pay through rates, just from all of the outreach that they do, just to make sure that the customers are getting the most out of their box. But what other examples have you seen?
Well, let me talk about those that are kind of missing the eight ball, if you will, right? Like, I feel that I'll talk to a subscription brand about their product, and you'll realize that they have a loyal subscriber base that essentially just they like stop communication after purchase, right? Okay. Or they're so focused on, let's curate the box, like on the subscription box world, like let's curate the box, let's make sure that the box is getting into a timely manner, because like customers can get antsy about receiving things, right? Everyone is expecting 2-day shipping, something that comes to them super quick. So that means like brands in the sub box world are so focused on, okay, let's get products curated so that we have amazing products and it's getting to their door so quickly. And then they flip the switch to go into, let's say, the next box, especially if you're on a monthly basis, and let's curate content and products on that they completely forget about how can we stay engaged with our customers through email, through video content, through just general messaging to reach out to them. You'll realize, okay, somebody has got an email list of, let's say, 10,000 people, but like the only emails they're getting is thank you for your order and and your product has shipped, right? I won't talk about a brand that there's a subscription brand that I absolutely like love in terms of product, because I'm subscribed to it. And the only emails I ever get from them are, your order has renewed and your order is on the way. And I just want to, I should actually probably just write to them and be like, hey, here's what I do. Here's I am. I love your product. I love the brand. My wife loves it. But like, you don't engage with me at all in between shipments. And it's like, it's disheartening, because like it takes away from the experience that if somebody comes along offering the same product, I'm probably going to cancel but there's no other product out there, I have to say, for this one. But like, I would probably leave. So I think it's super important that brands really think about engaging with their customers after the fact, right? It's not a transactional thing. These are customers you're trying to build lifetime value on, hence the word lifetime value. So you gotta engage them for the lifetime that you have them on, and hopefully it's a very, very long time. And then other people are doing just that, right? And they're thinking creatively, like outside the box, of how to implement like rewards programs, referral programs, or even like incentivize milestone referrals. Like I love brands that do this. They do like there's a rewards program where it's like get 10% off, but like everyone does that. But then there's a rewards program where it's like refer to 5 people, like Morning Brew. They're an email newsletter media company subscription. You get it, right? And they do a milestone referral program that I thought was fantastic. It's like if you refer people, you start to earn actual tangible rewards. Right now, it feels like I feel when you're getting something that's tangible, like it's getting shipped to me, whether it's a mug or a T-shirt, like there's like I don't know, there's like serotonin or whatever is released, and I feel super excited over the fact that that was able to do that, right? And I was able to get some sort of like tangible good out of that. So implementing like things like that, and then also, like in the worlds of like I see this in the worlds of like affiliate and influencers, like it's completely different than it was like 10 years ago, where you could just like send a product to somebody or just get them to promote. Like now it's just so costly and expensive. It's hard to measure ROI. So the brands that are engaging in what I call like strategic partnerships with like influencer and affiliates, where like the affiliate and influencer is almost vested to really promote like a certain product or a service, because maybe they have some sort of involvement in, let's say, the curation or like in the messaging or something like that. Right. And doing something like that makes the collaboration seem super organic. And then as a consumer, I'm like, oh, that's awesome, because it doesn't feel like, Kevin Hart is just selling Fabletics shorts. It feels like he's somebody that actually just wears the shorts all the time, and he's a super like advocate of it. And that's what you got to do in those type of things. So brands that are really bringing on influencer and affiliates and treating them as advocates and ambassadors of the brand, and really developing a strategic partnership around that, driving that value to that consumer, is a really great retention strategy.
Okay. What strategies around partnership with influencers have you seen work, right? Because I think, are they giving away equity in the company? Are they, hiring them as a consultant? Like, what strategies work for really getting them engaged? Because I agree with you, like just throwing your stuff out there, hoping that they're gonna, create a video of them unboxing it. Yeah, that's pretty unlikely. But on the flip side of that, when someone's getting paid to do it, it's pretty obvious, right? That they're being paid to promote an item. Versus somebody who's nowadays, like, yeah, I really love this thing, right? So what strategies there are actually working?
So I think that one, and to take myself back to my Gentleman's Box days and put my merchant hat back on, these are strategies that I tried to implement often, and some of them that did work. There was throw money at somebody, and hopefully the video garnished a ton of views, and we got some folks, right? That sucks nowadays. Plus, you're right. You see right through it nowadays with other influencers and affiliates. You can just see right through it that it's a sales ad kind of thing. So I think that it's more of just like kind of selling. In my opinion, it's like selling to the influencer affiliate that like they have an audience that meshes really well with your audience. And that if you can convey that message to a point where like, that you're going to collectively garnish a bunch of new followers, a bunch of new sales, right? Like we almost did something with we were in talks with Bear Grylls' team at one point with Gentleman's Box, because we were curating a box. The idea was, let's have Bear Grylls curate the box himself, so that all the items are like items that he uses out in the wild, or items that he has on his actual shop. And promoting that to his audience would garnish so many new followers that it was almost like a guarantee that like he would bring a certain number of people, and then you could give a kickback to him to say, okay, for every box that we sell this month or this quarter, because we're going to be able to leverage your own audience of like 10, 12 million, which if you look at somebody like that, who's a highly engaged consumer base, like you can almost, they already have the stats in place to say, like, we're able to convert so-and-so on products because this person has built such a huge personal brand, right? That you could put in a referral program for that person and it would make complete sense. But it's like, you got to find the right affiliate influencer who's got an engaged audience, right? Yeah. Where that person has built such a large personal brand that they could justify, okay, like I already know that I'm going to push like 1,000 units of these, that if we do like a referral of like, $20, $30 or whatever it may be on a product, that it's going to be well worth than just doing kind of like a one-off thing. So
Yeah.
you kind of have to be really strategic about it. You have to find the right people because to your point, it's tough, right? Like you also, I guess like for like Fabletics, I'm sure they've given, Kevin Hart or other folks who promote the brand like equity in the company in like a small stake, I'm assuming.
Mhm.
I have to assume. But those are bigger brands. So I could see a lot of the bigger enterprise brands like being able to like carve out equity for somebody that comes on as an advocate or a strong ambassador. But if
Yeah.
you're like a mid-level brand or like a startup brand, it's very tough to let go of that early on. But then again, right, you don't necessarily need like the biggest piece of like a small pie. You'd rather have like
Right.
a
Yeah.
half piece of like a super, super large pie.
Well, it's kind of the Shark Tank mentality there a
Yeah.
little bit, right?
Yeah.
You're not necessarily needing their money. You want their influence and distribution and PR that goes along with it, right?
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's worth it. It's worth it in those examples, like the Shark Tank example you're providing, and even folks that are at that level of influence or have that like level of network. It's like it would be very easy for me, and if I had to recommend this to other brands, like think about that. Like think about like carving out equity because you're gaining so much more. There's so much
Mhm.
more upside within that person's network, their influencer, their channels, their communities, the people that they know. Like they could introduce you to one person that could strike a deal, and maybe you're able to cut manufacturing costs or cut whatever you can save on the
Yeah.
back end somehow, right? Like
Yeah.
there's so much upside with folks like that like it would make sense to look at carving out equity for somebody like that.
Okay. Well, let's go to the other end of the spectrum for a second, because you talk about communities, right? Subscription brands are the good ones, are good at building communities around their brands, right? Of people that evangelize
Yeah.
what they are, their products on their behalf. Which in this age of very high customer acquisition costs, that's gold, right? So I guess on that end, for existing subscribers who are out there talking about these brands, what are you seeing subscription brands do well to incentivize those really loyal top end subscribers?
Um, on the sub box side of things, I think that I've seen some brands incentivize them with like additional products. Right, it's very easy to provide additional products or um, have them as like micro influencer, micro referrals, like pay. Pay. It's almost like a paid program where like
Yeah.
we did this with John's Box. We had our influencers and affiliates that we worked with, right? And
Mm-hmm.
they had strong communities, but like it became saturated very very quickly if you worked with them multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
But then you had like the loyal subscriber base, loyal subscribers who would go tell their friends and their family members, right? And because they love the brand. And so what we did is we started incentivizing them with just like with like payments, like, hey, like for every
Right.
person that you start to refer, we'll pay you $5, $10. And we had some people that were making a couple $100 a month with us
Really?
just by
Wow.
telling
Yeah.
just by telling their friends, right? Like sign up
Mm-hmm.
for a Gentleman's Box, sign up for a Gentleman's Box, right? And so we
Yep.
incentivize them with cash, with actual financial cash. They were getting their box, paid for. Right at that
Mm-hmm.
point, they could just cover the cost of their box and make a
Right.
little extra cash on the side, all just for word of mouth. Right.
Yeah.
So that was something that worked well for us. But other brands are also doing it. Again, going back to the whole milestone referral, like doing something that provides like some sort of like tangible impact in their mind that like I'm not just getting a discount code that like I may or may not use, right? I may or may not use a discount
Mm-hmm.
code if you give it to me. But if I know that I'm going to receive something that is like of high value and tangible, and I think that I'm going to get good use out of it, like, yeah, that's more of an incentive for me to say, okay, you should get this, you should get this, you should get this kind of thing.
Yeah. So
So I,
so kind of to think about that a little bit more, it's like, don't make them work for it, right? They've already done the work for you. Don't make them work harder to redeem it or whatever, right?
yeah,
Make it frictionless.
make it easy and frictionless for them, 100%.
Yeah. Cool. Well, what else can we expect at the show this year? Anything new you guys are doing a little bit different than you've done in years past? I know we were talking a little bit before this that you're expecting kind of a record crowd, right?
Yeah,
Which is fantastic that so many of these conferences that really went through an awful rough spot there with COVID are coming through
yeah,
this on the other side with kind of just a renewed optimism and people being excited about these associations and being able to network and do things face to face again. What
Mhm.
what other new things are you guys doing?
So, I mean, we've been so focused on the event. One of the things that we've kind of realized, and this is just coming through survey of our own merchants, merchant audience, is that a lot of the merchants find that they receive their most value out of our event, right? The association is a great way to connect people all year round, and we'll never get rid of that, right? So we'll always have the association that connects our suppliers and vendors with our merchants all year round. We're continuously putting out content through podcasts, through our email marketing efforts, through our social channels. And so we're always doing reviews. We have subscription review show where we review subscription boxes, and we have all that content that we're continuously pumping out through the association. At the event side of things, is we realize that people love to be in person, one-on-one. So it's like, what are we doing at the event that's going to ensure that people are able to actually engage in like meaningful conversations with like folks that they want to speak with? Because as events get larger, you know how this is. I was just at Shop Talk at the end of March, and there was 10,000 people there, right? You're not going to meet with all 10,000 people. And sometimes you get lost in the crowd,
Yeah.
and you get shuffled around at certain points. It's hard to have conversations. And one of the things that Shop Talk does really well, and one of the things that we're doing at our event, and one of the things that's growing at our event, is we have our hosted buyer program. And this is essentially business speed dating, right? It's an opportunity to connect suppliers and vendors that help subscription brands grow and scale with merchants that are like pre-qualified for what it is that they're looking for. So if somebody's coming to SubSummit as a merchant and they're like, I really need to solve solution, come up with a solution to my logistics nightmares, right? Right. They're going to fill out this profile to say, I want to meet with logistics providers, solution providers are going to help me with that. And they're going to get matched up. And this kind of this business speed dating creates like high quality, engaging conversations where both parties, right, both ends of the spectrum get to walk away saying like, I had a really great conversation at SubSummit with so-and-so. And that itself is going to drive value for them to be like, this is why I come to SubSummit, because that alone is driving such great value, right? And then we have a ton of different topics. We have 3 different track sessions this year, talking on acquisition, retention, customer experience, front end, back end operations, right? So we have multiple track sessions that are running simultaneously, and that gives merchants the opportunity to say, I can bring multiple folks from my team. So that way I can have some focus, some marketing folks go, listen on acquisition and retention kind of thing, right? Like operation folks can go figure out how to perfect their supply chain and their logistics solutions, and then be able to kind of drive value to the brand as a whole versus like, one person coming and trying to absorb all the content across all 3 days. So having these multiple track sessions, we'll be able to do that. And then, we always have our Cube Awards on day 2, which we bring back. We're bringing back this year. It's like the Oscars of the subscriptions. We do like the whole red carpet and take paparazzi, and we put on a really, really cool award ceremony. So we have that again this year. And then just doing other creative things this year, unique experiences, right? Like we talk about experiences, right? And so like one of the things that we're doing is we're trying to drive experience for folks by having like different networking events that will allow folks outside of like the traditional expo hall and the track session, conference style trade show. Is that like, what are we doing after the event that is going to still allow merchants and vendors and suppliers to still network? And that's like the after hours events, right? It's putting on the Cube Awards, and it's having, dinner receptions and really kind of encouraging everybody to listen. From 9 to 5 is trade show, expo hall, educational pieces, but it doesn't end at 5, right? After hours, there's all these great opportunities to continuously network with folks and learn from people and like build on, your brands. And so those are some of the things that we're introducing this year that's going to kind of allow people to really get one-on-one with each other.
That's one thing I can attest to personally after having gone to SUBTA and a couple of other shows that have done this really well, is the ones that are coming out great on the other side of COVID here are the ones that really are focusing on the networking, and not just saying that they are, right? Everybody talks about networking at their events, but facilitating ways to start conversations. And I'll say even, there's probably some apprehension among merchants to get involved in something like hosted buyer, right? Where they're like, great, I got to sit around and be sold something, one right after another for a period of time. And while that is at least, of course, partially true, you are still forming networking and relationships with new people, right? Who might be introducing you to somebody else, but it's just better ways to get plugged into the event, because the most valuable thing that these all have is that the people that you meet there who have been in the trenches, gone through the things that you've gone through, can share those lessons or point you in the right direction. And that sort of thing is just invaluable. You can't find that on the web. You don't want to have to go through it on your own. I mean, that's really why you go to these things, right?
Yeah. And it's not just getting plugged into the event. It's like getting plugged into the industry as a whole. Because like I used to do the hosted buyer program myself as a merchant when I went to Shop Talk. And yeah, you're right. You're like, it's fine. Like I'm going to get sold something. And Shop Talk incentivize merchants to come, of course, and we do the same thing because we want them to want to be involved and want to actually take away, information. But like, you may not strike a deal with somebody like that day, or maybe the conversation doesn't make sense for you at the point of your business size or whatever. But I can't tell you how many times where 6 months down the road or a year down the road, when we were in that position to be like, you know what, we should do this. Actually, I remember having this conversation with this guy or this individual, like when I was at this show, and it didn't make sense for us then, but it makes sense for us now. Right. And now you're going through the Rolodex of like, who was that person again? Or how can I get in touch with that person? Because I now want to implement it. So it may not make sense for you now, and you may feel like you're getting sold something, but to your point, like you're getting plugged into the industry as a whole. And somewhere down the line, you may need that as you grow and scale, because your goal is, of course, to grow and scale. And so then that conversation starts to become super valuable.
Yep, absolutely. Well, John, this has been a heck of a lot of fun, and I'm really excited about the show. Already was excited, but of course, this conversation is maybe even more excited about it. But for those listening who want to learn more about it, or just find out more about SUBTA in general, or maybe have a question for you about something that we talked about today, where are the best places to go?
Well, I mean, you can head to the site, SubSummit.com. All right. Yeah, there's an opportunities to actually right now, and just for the next couple of days, we actually have our tickets are kind of like early bird specials right now for anybody that wants to get involved and come to the show. So SubSummit.com. You can follow us on all of our social channels at SubSummit. And then for me personally, like I'm an open book. So John at SubSummit.com. If you have any questions, if you want to reach out, if you just want to connect, or just network, feel free to shoot me an email. I'm happy to respond and connect with anybody within the industry.
Well, John, you and Paul and Chris, I mean, you've all been great people to know. I mean, you guys don't just, put this event on, but you guys get very involved in it, are very active around the floor and on the stage and everywhere, making it all happen. And that makes it a lot more fun too.
Yeah. I mean, we just want to build on a really strong community of, one of the nice things about our event too is like we were fortunate enough to kind of like put together an event where 50 to 55% of the attendees there are other C-level executive owners and founders who like we've been in their shoes and we know what it's like, right? So and so it's great to do that. And you're right, like I had a broken foot last year, but I was rolling around in a little dolly, just like saying hi to everybody. Like we're super involved. I'm like tearing down things, putting up booths. It's all a good time and it's all fun and it's all worth it at the end of the day.
Well, you guys are in the home stretch. It's going to be here before we know it. So good luck with that for sure. Look forward to being there. And thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Hey, look forward to seeing you at SubSummit in Dallas. And thanks again, Nick, for having me on the show.
Thanks, John.